can you talk to me a little bit about Cardlytics, a little bit of the genesis, where the data comes from, and then maybe how you're working in the ecosystem today?
You bet. First, it's great to join Cardlytics partners, MediaMath, Experian, and Dish here today. I think a good segue is our data answers the question: did spend occur? So there's a lot of data coming into the system. I think one that's really rich and relevant for TV today, especially in the addressable ecosystem, that we can answer along with Experian is when a TV customer was served an ad campaign, did they or did they not buy something? Did a spend event occur? And so how do we come by that data? Cardlytics has been around since 2008. We're a network of banks, large banks, like Bank of America and PNC, processors like Fiserv, who aggregate community banks and credit unions, all the way through to prepaid card providers. And people who use prepaid cards today are not. They're a different group than they were even 10 years ago. They're no longer kind of thought of as underbanked, but people who are making different choices about how they have a banking relationship. And so I think we're able to pull all those groups together to give a really good representation of how people are spending money. And we can do it at scale. And so the bank network today represents just about 120 million unique accounts of those banks. It is a private network. And so everything starts and ends with secure PII staying on the side of the banks. So unlike Experian, we do not touch PII. We never see it, we never touch it. But what we can do with Experian is connect a Dish household ID to a bank ID. So when Mike and Jamie's teams at Modi have a client that wants a very specific target, we can do that in a couple configurations. So we could say, Mike and Jamie's team could say, we want to reach burger buyers, and we have a burger category. Or they could say, we just want to target somebody, our client wants to target somebody at the merchant level, and so we can pull that one merchant out and say, and provide a targeting platform for that too.
So it's interesting because the traditional paradigm of television was, did I reach the people that I wanted to reach in very broad categories, 18 to whatever, very broadly. And this paradigm is, did someone buy something that I wanted them to buy? So how are you seeing the kind of maturity curve of marketers and agencies adopting this new measurement paradigm?
Right.
This whole, I can see what happened, what did they buy, rather than I'm hitting a CPM, I'm hitting a target.
Well, obviously, I think it starts with addressable. I think the promise of being able to say at a one-to-one level, this household, I can now say something very specific to them based off of real spend outcomes, and then how can I measure that? Did spend happen? What was my ROI on that? I think certainly digital has I think helped TV along to this place in time. But now I think data can be safely and securely configured in TV this way. I think it does give TV, and I think you saw it in the upfronts this year. Linear is continuing to see some money come back to it. Addressable certainly is really growing, and I think as the data comes in and agencies and their teams understand it and can rationalize an execution along with clients. I think, I'm not sure who said it before, but there can be a little bit of too much too fast. There can be too much data that enters the system. And so I think, as we work with Experian and Dish, we're looking at things like, can we target audiences and understand those? And can we understand outputs that, largely focus around, did sales happen? And was there a market share shift? What changed in that?
So what's too much too fast? Where are folks kind of getting it wrong or not using it the right way?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the, kind of the brown belt comment. At what point does an audience lose resonance? If you're someone like E-Trade, for example, you have a very different addressable audience than somebody like Arby's might. And so, you know, how much data does each merchant need or each buyer need to understand the efficacy of that ad? Is it sales? Is it ROI? And I think those are questions that we help power, but ultimately those are questions that agencies on behalf of clients and MVPDs have to answer. And I think the easiest way to think about Cardlytics is our data powers products for the MVPDs. We don't do measurement or targeting outside of the MVPDs in TV, and so we really believe strongly in that connection of first-party bank data safely and securely to first-party set-top box data, and that's where the real power is. And you know, we've endeavored to not change or impact the way TV's bought and sold today. And we think in this configuration, well, I think TV. Like,
why? I get it, but why?
It's a good system. I think the way agencies represent client buyers and the way MVPDs are beginning to leverage their data, there's a lot of data players that are driving into the ecosystem, and you know, how that can be disruptive in a good way. It can be simply disruptive. So you know, I think agencies still best represent client buyers, and I think MVPDs with their data can work with agencies and buyers to understand outputs from those television campaigns, and we're there to help power it. We're not there to supplant or to be provocative in ultimately how that changes, because at the end of the day, you know, the standard has been the standard. It's worked very well, and so I think TV, as it works together to figure out what's next, I think we play a role.
You're Switzerland here.
Well, you know, I think we have a perspective that says, you know, first-party set-top box data is really important. It can answer a lot of questions. And as data like ours can connect through Experian, that it tells a good story, it answers questions. I think one of the executions you'll start to see is, you know, where we can say somebody, you know, went here and spent money here, and this is how much they spent, and here's how many times they went. Experian can also add context to that it was this age cohort, or it was this gender, or it was this income level. And so I think that feels familiar the way TV, you know, somewhat thinks about it today. And so when we can marry the two in that execution and have that output, that we ran a campaign, we can iterate the creative because we know the spend shifted or the share shifted, and how do we now optimize off of that? I think it's going to be a really good system, and we're in the early days of it. But increasingly, you know, I think you'll start to hear about us and Experian working with, you know, Dish, and their sales team now has this solution we're out in the field actively with.